Hello and welcome. My name is Rashim Mogha and I'm your host for this Empowered Women of the World podcast. This podcast is for you. It is for me and it is for all women who want to take charge of their career and happiness. In this weekly podcast, we'll talk about technology, we'll talk about leadership, and we will talk about mindfulness. We'll talk about how you can discover, visualize, and actualize your success, whatever that means to you. We will also talk about our common opponent, the conscious and unconscious bias which we deal with on daily basis. And we'll share ways to navigate work politics. At the end of each podcast, I will share with you a tip or a resource that you can use to be successful. It's going to be a fun ride, so hop on and join me on this journey every week. Before we start today's podcast, I'm excited to share that I will be conducting a webinar on how to build your personal brand on December 6th. You can register for the webinar through the link in the show notes. And now back to today's podcast. I was speaking at the Women in Tech conference last month and a participant shared with me that she's often labeled as aggressive at workplace. She wanted some tips on how to break this perception. Have you ever been called aggressive? Well, I have been. A Harvard business study indicates that in a specific organization, 76% of the women were referred to as aggressive as opposed to 24% men. So first and foremost, let me clarify something. Assertive and aggressive are not synonyms. They cannot be used interchangeably. While aggression means behavior intended to cause physical or mental harm, assertiveness actually refers to a confident personality. While being aggressive has a negative connotation, being assertive is a leadership quality. Remember that just because someone calls you aggressive, you shouldn't change yourself. But then, how do you change the perception? First and foremost, call it out. In my experience, most people, including many seasoned managers and execs, don't really understand the difference between assertive and aggressive. They use them interchangeably. I politely correct them by saying, I'm not aggressive, I'm assertive, and there's a difference between the two. Assertive people share their opinions while being respectful of others, while aggressive people attack others' opinion. You want to clarify this the moment someone calls you aggressive. If you don't clarify it at that very moment, you will continue to be called aggressive and this perception will soon become your reality. The second tip is to listen effectively. Whenever I'm in a discussion that pertains to topics that I'm deeply passionate about, I have to really make a conscious effort to listen to others' perspective. Interruption is often labeled as aggression, so let the other person finish and then share your thoughts. Keep a conversational tone and stay calm but firm in intense situations. And then lastly, find a common ground and share your point of view. Rephrase your sentences to start with agreeing to the business problem and then sharing your perspective. For example, you could say, I agree that our expenses have doubled and there is a need to reduce the spend. I recommend that we, and then you continue with the solution. Remember that while your proposed solution may be different from others, you all have a common goal, which is to find the best solution for the business. Remember that stereotyping is dangerous and it impacts the morale of an individual. It has impacted my morale multiple times. So if you are a manager, make sure that when you provide feedback to your team members, your feedback isn't based on an unconscious bias. Choose your words carefully. And my dear passionate women leaders, keep asserting. And if someone calls you aggressive, make sure that you explain to them the difference between assertive and aggressive. I hope you find these tips useful. Today's free resource is the link to daily leadership affirmations to help you start a successful day. The link is in the show notes. And don't forget to register for the Build Your Personal Brand webinar on December 6th. The link is in the show notes as well. Thank you for joining me today and thank you for loving, liking, supporting and sharing the podcast. Remember, sharing is caring. I love your feedback emails, so please keep them coming. I look forward to seeing you again in our next podcast. Till then, keep empowering the world.